live. Today's session, we will continue our line. We finished the front legs, so it's time to extend the vertebrae. So from the thoracic bones, let me alt and click the thoracic ones. We shall start moving on to the neck, which is the cervical vertebrae. So if I just uh, make sure that I have this one selected, we can start by duplicating this and modifying it. Don't have to be too exact as long as it, yeah, it looks right. So what I'm going to do is with my move brush, okay, sorry about that. I think I lost connection briefly, but I'm back by the looks of it. So let's duplicate our bone, carry on sculpting. So what I've done, I've just duplicated one of the vertebrae, and now I'm going to split this into its own subtool. So split, unmasked points, and that will take you to the new subtool. Alright, so we need to shape this a little bit better. So looking at from the bottom, first maybe move this a little bit like that. So these vertebrae are slightly thicker for a lion, because the neck is a very strong, sorry, group of muscles that it needs to support. So based on that, it needs to be able to carry that muscle. So to begin with, I would say that it's not that long, so maybe just smooth it out and even use a clip curve. Sorry, clip curve and see if you can maybe cut off the top like that. Will create some artifacts, but that's okay, we will sort it out. Dynamic, and maybe Dynamesh isn't on, so let's check. Dynamesh, not that low res, a little bit of resolution. Yeah, that's better. So I've got a reasonably low res mesh, which I can manipulate as I please. There's slight difference in the shape here, because there's two little wings that go on from either side. So let me look at the reference. I'll come back to you in a second. So what I'm from the top, the side. So in this view, and this needs to come out. So let's get the move topological, pull it down this way. Okay, I shall give it some volume with the inflate brush. And maybe make it narrower here. Okay, and then from the top, maybe you could just smaller brush. Actually, from the front view, do it this way. So that's more the shape of that. And this isn't exactly right, but I'm not all that bothered. Maybe just make it a little bit flatter from the top. So from the front, it looks more or less the same. And also this bit here, I think is a little bit different. So we may bring it out, sorry, not there, out like that, so it's more of a even surface, less of a curve. Also give it a little bit of an inflate to add some volume, and like that, so it's more disc-like here. Okay, it looks okay. Now do that, control drag to just dynamesh it, and also the heart shape is more of a more rounded like that, so don't want to do too much with that, that's okay. Same on this side. So there's 7 of these bones, so this would be C7, you know, like cervic bone 7, and if I remove solo, one problem we had is this one is a bit too much, I think. So as we go, these get a little shorter. Right. So the next one is we'll duplicate this. So always unlock and reset the rotation before you duplicate, just as a best practice thing, and also make sure you're in an orthographic view, side view, and then control drag. So here we have to start to go upward a bit. It's going to reduce the height a little bit. Also on this one, I'm gonna make it so it goes under. Maybe not like that, but a little bit like that. Okay, back here. So we have 2 separate subgroups, I mean polygroups. Make sure we have groups selected here for Dynamesh. Control click to select, reset rotation, and control drag. Yeah, if the angle is not exact, it's still okay. We can change that a little bit later. So the shape of this part, the spine thing that comes out, also changes as we come here. So let's sculpt that a little bit. Essentially, yeah, I want it to be a little bit this way. Okay, and also if for the angle, if this is not to your liking, in fact, let's just get a reference. We are going this way, so okay, So I should have checked that first, but not a problem. I mean, we can move this to the end like that, rotate it down. Okay, then we're going straight ahead this way, no problem. Okay, just move it, shape it. So we're going to slight curve this way, and then it comes back down for the skull. Sweet. Just gonna make it so it's a little bit thick as it comes down like that. Okay. Again, I don't think this is like really exact, but mainly I'm looking for these ones coming down like that, and that bit, the spine shape. Right now, control drag. Just going to adjust this bit here as well. Okay. Just making sure there's a light, just a thin gap that goes between the two bones, and not too much gap between these little wings. Two, three, four. It might be that they're too wide this way or long. I mean, whichever way you look at it, because a lion has 7 vertebrae, and by the time we go to 3, we can only get one more in 4. So we'll do all the 7, and then we'll scale it back down this way. So that will make sense. So let's carry on. I think what we can do is progressively scale it down, because some of these they get narrower as they go out, and one way you can do that is using the anchor brushes. Anchor classic. So we have rotate, scale. Oh, that scales in all directions. So maybe just save, move. And the way this works is you place an anchor here and an anchor there, making sure you're not masking anything. And then if you just do this, it just, you know, does that, squeezes in or goes out, which is perfect for what we're after. Yeah, little technique there. And going back to our topological, just going to shape. So the way this one works is it needs to actually go forward You're getting some weird artifacts, sorry. This is forward and then it goes like that. So again, this comes forward. Okay, and yeah, so I'm just going to adjust the shape of this because the rest of them are going to be very much similar. And the other thing that we can do is these wings, they have to like be a little bit towards the right, so they're pulled backwards. Right now it's quite straight out, like they're coming out and straight to the camera, but they need to actually go slightly behind. And once that is done, there's this nice is it C2 or C3? There's one cervic bone that's C2, I think. The axis, that's a very interesting bone. So I'm going to flatten this like so. I think there's some geometry inside. Oh no, there are holes. Holes, you just have to close them using inflate. And then smooth out. It's more the shape you want. Just making sure I've got my back face masking enabled. So it doesn't affect any adjacent meshes. Okay, that's much better. So now, oh actually, like I said, let's fix this as well. So move elastic, that's it. And move topological, adjust, something like that. I'll do. And give it a little flat head. Five. This is also more or less the same. Just going to move this a little bit down so it has that tapering effect. And now we have the C2 bone to do the axis, which all these quadrupeds have. Even we have it, but this is slightly different to the rest of the cervix. Because this is where a lot of ends of some muscles attach. The shape for this, Maybe yeah, we can still copy this one. Like that. And just gonna check my reference. So yeah, so this is the ball bit. Okay, looking good. Zoom in. And maybe, yeah, using topological, or just gonna shape it like this. So this one actually goes above the one before. So we shall move this guy a little bit down like that. So this whole thing comes over there. So even here at the bottom it will be a little bit different, but mainly this part I think could use a bit more width. But everything else I think is okay. Not that yeah, I'm not that precious about everything else. It's just this crown that is the most important bit. And now this is how it looks like. um, I can see that this could maybe come down as well, so it's all like one swing of like an arc goes in one smooth action. And then we have this ball-like bone, the atlas, which is the first of the vertebrae, which joins the skull to the rest of the spine, and this is a very unique bone as well. Trying to get a nice angle of it on my reference, the app I use, but it's not very intuitive, the camera angles on this, so bear with me. So for this, I think I'll start with a sphere. Let's not worry about duplicating any of these. So primitives, sphere, insert sphere, just like that. And this should be its own group, so no problems there. Place it somewhere here, maybe there. So the sphere part sits just under the crown of the previous one, something like that, and then we'll sculpt the other details. So clay build up as usual. Just gonna dynamesh this so we have a nice resolution. So first of all, it needs like a socket. So just there, invert the mask, and then just sculpt a little socket. And this socket is where I think a little ball of the skull attaches to. And we want it to be actually slightly rotated this way, like that. And smooth out. And we shall draw these wings. So this one has some really flat and wide wings, very different to the rest of the bones. So maybe snake hook is going to do the job, like that. And then topological to make those wings. Again, this also connects to some really big muscle groups, the neck muscles, which is why they're quite wide, these wings. But it also needs something that connects to the bone below, so the shape here needs to be flattened a bit. And just move, because it's not like a perfect circle, so you have to adjust. Then with dynamic, you can flatten some parts, just in the middle there, and with some clay build up, I can give some ridges. I think also here, give a lip. Okay, so that's the basic shape. I can tweak it further a little later maybe, but I just want to look at it from the side view. There's too much gap, so we need to fix that. Also the wing is slightly this way. Actually goes like that. And then there's this hump that comes out a bit. So something like that. And I think this can also look a little bit upward. Like I think it's coming too far forward, and this can now fill in that gap. So basically it needs to be higher up here then flattens out and it goes back. And now that's a solid neck bones. Yeah, we can do more, but I guess I won't for now. Let's see how it's looking overall. So yeah, we got this. I think in relation to everything else, this one's a little bit too wide, so I'll knock it back a bit. So all we can do is control click reset, sorry, remove it, make sure that the pivot is at the end and simply do that. Yeah, that's okay, I think. Let's look at it up close. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Just gonna move it a little bit so there's a gap, and then yeah, that looks okay. And we can adjust the size of this mouth, the whole as well if we need to. I think it does come down a bit. So yeah, it's not a huge socket, just that much. So now for the skull, two parts. The top part we shall start with first, the cranium, and then we'll do the jaw, that's the mandible, and we'll also do the teeth. So we know exactly what size they need to be for the and get the proportion right. Okay, for the cranium, I think once again best to just start with a spear. When in doubt, just insert a spear and then go from there. Okay, so let's also bring the reference. So this is the shape of a cranium. We can maybe first split the unmasked part, so that goes into a separate subtool. So subtool split unmasked, sorry, masked points. So that goes into a separate subtool. And then taking move topological, I'm just gonna roughly shape it. I know the shape of this cranium that I drew is pretty accurate, so have no problems sticking to the reference. So that's the overall shape. In the front view, that's gonna look awful. So for this, I'll look at the reference in the app. So we want it to be somewhat like that. Make sure we got Dynamesh turned on because this is a new tool. Yes, we have it. So now I'm going to isolate this and sculpt and finish it, and then we'll check again against the reference to see if we need to tweak the proportions. So for the cranium, again, this is the fun part. I really love sculpting the skulls. Every creature brings something different in this department. So you have this line that goes through in the middle, and these two parts, you know, that they hold a huge group of muscles, facial muscles. So this is where the creatures get their biting power from. It's this bone, this spine here, and the muscles that it carries. So it's not just the mandibles, but this head muscles that gives the creature the power to bite into something. So it's going to be a little bit loose at first. If you happen to stop by, just make sure you give this video a like. And if you'd like to follow through all the way and see how this line turns out, you may want to consider subscribing as well, so you get notifications of future videos. Make sure you hit the bell icon as well. And yeah, sorry, just let it do its thing. Just wanted to also let you know while it does the autosave is I've got a couple of my courses that are currently going on a special discount. Both my Houdini fur creation and CG creature creation masterclass. They're both on Udemy. They're both going for $10, well $9.99 to be exact, for another 5 days. So if you want to get that and just go through the process, I mean, a lot of the sculpting that I show in these streams, they've also been explained in my Master CG Creature Creation course. So you might find it easy to just grab that and watch it at your own time if you don't want to follow along in these streams. And also the fur creation in Houdini is a really handy course if you're looking for a quick overview of grooming fur and hair in Houdini. So this is kind of where the eye socket starts. So I'm just making some marks first, what goes where. So it comes down like that, and then there's the nasal ridge. I think the zygomatic bone comes about here. Let's dig in to the eye socket and we'll have a bit more idea what to do with this. This part needs to be very narrow, so trim dynamic, let's just trim away some of the details. So there's a little bit of something, I don't know what this is called, but it comes out like this. we don't have any of this part, so let's just do that. Just adjusting. That looks right. So we got the shape of the cranium. Now I'll do some of the detailing. From the front view, so this whole area is like a big hole, so we're gonna use booleans for this. So, or can even, yeah, boolean, let's do boolean. So it's a cylinder. I think this will, obviously you need to split it into a new subtool. So I'll just say split unmasked points, and that will go away. And then we make this into, where's the, oh, I think I may have forgotten how to do boolean. Great, that's fine. Why does it not work like that? So that should be able to make this the boolean mesh. Is that because something's hidden? Modify topology. Maybe that's because the dynamesh is on. Never mind. I'm going to sculpt it, and I'm going to figure out how to do the boolean, and it'll come back to making the hole here. Sorry guys, I completely forgot how to do boolean. Haven't done it in such a long time. Okay, now going to make this area where we'll be creating the holes. Just mask this. And Control W. Now we have a different mask. We might try to just delete that bit and then oh no, but if I dynamesh it, yeah, I can just bridge it, I suppose. Yeah, I'll bridge it. Yeah, that's a better way of doing it. So if I do modify topology, delete hidden, alright, and now go to Z modeler here and hit hit space, and I think here we have something like bridge. If you say two holes, uh, let's leave everything else default. So that's one bridge. No, I don't think so. Yeah, let's yeah, if you look at that, so that basically bridged those two edge loops. And now we can go back to, in fact, this is a better way of doing anyway, instead of Boolean. Again, introduces a lot of problems with when you're in this Dynamesh mode. So once you've done that, just go back to, no, subtool, no, geometry. Make sure zero measure is, no, not zero measure, Dynamesh is on. Ah, why does it do that? Okay, maybe modify topology weld points. Make sure that the points are welded. And smooth out these edges just to make sure. And also what you could do is inverse selection and then Control W, so this is all one polygroup instead of so many different polygroups. And now say Dynamesh there. I think even though the hole is closed, it is closed. It's really weird. Alright, not a problem. I think if we go a little bit higher in resolution, it shouldn't bother too much. It does. It's incredible. Okay, let's just, yeah, make sure there's just one subgroup, polygroup, and smooth out these edges. And now let's Dynamesh again. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's it. Always have to find a way, and there are multiple ways to a problem in ZBrush. So if you forget one way, we'll just try another. It's all about problem solving. There we go. That looks much better. So for the cranium, we want this rounded shape, but for a line, it's really narrow. I think even what I have right now is uh, not ideal. So first of all, this hole, now that we have it, let's just move this guy and make it nice and wide. That will allow us to do more work on the skull. I need to take this guy out of our way, and then this comes really narrow like that. And forward. that's the shape we want. Okay, and now we're going to do this part here. So this is the cranium, the bit under which the brain sits. Right, so this part here, it needs to be a little bit more solid, like come out a bit, and then it goes a little bit soft, and in the trim dynamic we can make it look a little bit flatter and go kind of in this direction. And also then maybe even wider here is actually quite narrow, so let's give it that sort of shape. That's it. That looks okay, that part. Need a little bit of rounding in this area. So these eye sockets, they have, from this view, they need a little bit more build up here, so it's more of a smooth transition, smooth turn. Right. So this can actually come out so it's like a bit straighter, just the top bit. fact, this is even more cylindrical. So this is the part where the canine comes out of. So that's why it's that rounded. Going to dig in here. There's a plane change that happens just about there. Mm, it could be somewhat like that. Let it finish its saving. So I'm going to just change the angle shortly and go a little bit top front and adjust the shape of that zygomatic arch because it's too rounded, but actually at the back it sort of flattens out. So I'm going to try and get that, and then that will help us gauge how wide or narrow the muzzle should be in relation. So if I do this, so that is way too rounded, whereas my reference says it's kind of like that. Maybe even at the bottom we can do the same, right? And we can go and flatten the inner bits later, but also from this angle, when I see this angle, this should come out a bit more like that. Alright, so okay. And actually this even needs to be a little bit longer. That's the problem I'm having, is it's not long enough. Trim dynamic, just flatten this top bit. Plane change. So I'm looking for these plane changes, which is so crucial in sculpting. So we know that this is a rounded form, but as it joins into the zygomatic arch, there's a plane change that happens like this. That's what. So as I trim this, you can see the changes in the shadows or the ambient occlusion of this model. That is really crucial to understand when you're looking at your reference. Try look for the plane changes because they all suggest how the overall shape of the face is going to be. So when you put a spotlight on it, you want to see those plane changes. So these just under that zygomatic bone, it gets a bit narrow like that. So that could be accentuated further with this trim dynamic brush. So let's see. Gonna delete these ugly cylinders. So you can see from the top view that's matching my drawing, and from here maybe we can flatten that part out a little bit. So yeah, I mean, it's the proportions are working. I'm just gonna make it nice and planar and bony using trim dynamic wherever possible. Just gonna start making a few landmarks for the teeth. We know we got the canines coming through there. So the other teeth, there are 3 or 4. I'm just looking at the reference to see how many it's got. Let's just do these first. So maybe get the capsule out. There. So I'll leave it in the same subtool for now. Sculpt. Let's start with dynamic. So if you're just wondering, I'll just hit Control Shift and I click the rest of the geometry. That will hide it. And also if you go solo, you don't see the other subtools. If you want the rest of the geometry to come back, hit Control Shift and in empty space, and that comes back. So Control Shift tap, and then that basically shows the geometry you tapped on. So if I then hit Control Shift and drag, it'll come back. So just in case you're wondering how I'm making stuff disappear, and you're new to ZBrush, if you're not new to ZBrush, you already know that. So this side is going to be a bit plainer, and then this side, and then it sort of gets a little bit rounded in the middle. And I think we can also go a little bit longer. So when you just run through the trim dynamic, you get all these different planar forms, which I really like, because the tooth is not a very even surface. It is very jagged, has a lot of things going on. Yeah, it's a very organic bone. Which is why I like to start with a capsule or even a cube instead of say a cone, which is, because it's so rounded, you spend a lot of time trying to get the right shape. Maybe it comes in a little bit like that. So for now, let's do that. Just a little bit pull over there, and also here I can dig in a little bit to create a cavity. So now it's a question of whether to move the canines back or the hole in position. I think I'll move the canine. There, there. Okay, and back in the front view. So I want this plane to, it's got this curve going on. I want it to be a little bit flatter. So put more build up, and then take the trim dynamic to even out that plane. Yeah, that's more like the bone. Maybe even more in this ridge. So we want it rounded, but not too rounded. Also, there's no ridge like in here in the middle, so I'm flattening that and smooth out a little bit. Yeah, that's more like it. Also, one thing that I tend to do sometimes, I don't think I've done it so far in this project. It's a little bit of a cheat, but it really helps with these bone sculpting. Let me show you in a second. First, let me get this thing sorted. So when dynameshing, there's this option called polish. So it applies a level of clay polish to your sculpt, and it makes the sculpt look really, really cool. I'll show you in a second. So under your Dynamesh menu, you see this polish, apply clay polish. So if you do that, maybe it's not something you want to do a lot, but if you do it once and get to that polish, it'll give it a nice look. So there you go. I think it did something. Maybe, yeah, you can see up close. So Control Z, I went back. This is where we were, and then I just do that, and it gives that nice polish to it. Don't want to do too much, so I'll turn it off now. So what it does is it gives the plane changes a bit more sharpness there, like you can see the zygomatic bone, and then I can obviously dial it down if I don't want it so much, but it does it throughout. Wherever there's like a plane change, it polishes that out, making it look more smooth and sharp where it needs to be. And so that's the cranium, and I've got these canines as well. So what we do, we do the mandible, and then we can do the other teeth and stuff. So for the mandible, it's a weird shape, isn't it? So okay, let me plan this. Yeah, I think it's best to just construct it from a string, maybe like a curved tube. Uh, so let's see. Yeah, because the rest of the geometry we can pull and push. It's just this shape that we want in place first. So pull these closer. So I'm going to go into each other. So when we dynamesh, it'll become one. Yeah, because this is the bit I think we'll struggle with the most. So if you get that out the way, the rest, yeah, we can push and pull and make the shape that we want. So mandible should it be ideally in its own subtool. So these are completely separate bones, so might as well. So split the mast points. So we're now left with just this. I'm gonna remove solo for now, and then just move it in place. Okay, that looks like a good start. Right, so the next thing to do is Dynamesh. It is Dynamesh, then got groups on. There you go. And snake hook. So when snake hooking, I recommend just masking and invert the mask. So you want this part to go through the cranium like that. So that looks good. Maybe also remove the mask here and reduce the brush size and pull it out like this, and from the inside. Okay, now it's just sculpting, good old sculpting. So just solo it for a moment and build up. We'll dig in some shape like this in the middle. Okay, so just take some detail off of it. So this is an interesting bone. It's actually, I think it splits into a Y here. So this top bit, take move topological, and then rests just on top of the zygomatic bone. Think about there, and we'll have to move it a little bit inwards as well. And then there's another piece that comes out and it goes a little bit to the sides of the zygomatic. Once we do that, and I do the canines of the bottom canine, I think we will call it a day. I'll come back in the next stream and to finish the teeth and do one final sense check and see whatever needs fixing. So always leave a session for that. So once it's all completed, what I will do is rename all my subtools, make it nice and neat, and make it available on my Ko-fi page for you guys to download. Okay, so from the top view, we want this to be a little bit this way. And then so just take a small brush and snake hook and then pull some of the details out like this. Trim dynamic. And also the other side, maybe you can flatten this. Anything round, we just flatten. Those bones are never really round. They're very planar, organic in shape. There you go. So because we dug in. Can we smooth it out, to be fair? And then there, much better. Getting there. That one. Right, so I think we need to pull this one a little bit back, shape it like that. Also check the reference. Yeah, that looks about right. Maybe pull it in a little bit more. Okay. There. Just gonna do this. Plane shifts. Okay. Right, so from this view we can see the issues a little bit clearly. So obviously the mandible is a much smaller in width than the cranium, so that tells us that we need to move it in this way, so it's completely not visible from the top view. There, that's much better. And from the bottom, it's a bit narrower. Yeah, that's more cat-like. And obviously when you look at it in this view, there's more we can do in terms of the shape. So let's say So the inside bit comes out a bit like that. And even further like that. Clay build up to close the gap a little bit. So we have that a little plate like shape. Now we can create some cavities for the teeth to pull the teeth out. So let's look at it from this angle. You can also use the canine as a guide to pull it even further inward. There's also from the bottom, there's a lot more mass here. Ah, what did I do? Yeah. Okay, that's a solid mandible. I can keep refining it, but I can see the main shapes are there. And from here, it's going to be a little bit more narrow upper part as well, the cranium. Just need to check it at every angle. Does it make sense? Does it feel like a lion? Definitely looking good from this angle. Yes, great. Nice. So once again for this, I'm gonna highlight this part and split those canines into its own subtools, split hidden. Control drag, just going to duplicate and turn around. And these canines from the mandible are much smaller in size, so scale them down. And also split mask points, so this is separate. And I like to have these done first because it gives you an idea of how much gap there needs to be between the mandible and the cranium and where it's not working. This already tells me that the angle of the mandible could be a little different, so selecting this here, just at this point, maybe there, yeah. If I rotate, sorry, reset, now rotate, I think that's a more reasonable gap for the teeth to fit in. And these can now be put in place like so. Nice. Maybe just rotate them a little bit more. Not too worried about them going through the cranium because I didn't really sculpt this part. If I did, there would be a little lip. So solo clay build up. Alright, let's take one last look at our creature. Nice, that looks good from the top, good enough from the side. I think our skeleton has slightly more open mouth than our drawing, but that's fine. I like it to be a little bit open when sculpting, just subtly, because when you sculpt the inner mouth and everything, it's you want to be able to mask those out, hide areas, and don't want any intersections. So yeah, I think we are on the right track. In the next video or next stream, we will do the rest of the teeth and also just make sure that all the ribs and everything they look okay, because eventually I will be simplifying the geometry, like the ribs and some of the other areas to make it CFX compatible, and also in the process all these gaps between the spine we're going to add a little bit of a ligament, those things that connect them together, those pads. I think they're ligaments, aren't they? Yeah, bone to bone is ligament. Bone to muscle would be the tendon. And so once we have those in place and the teeth, we call this done. So the skeleton of a lion is completed, and I'll try and make this available on my Ko-fi page. And from there, it's just a case of let me also just make sure I'm saving this before I say anything else. Right. Yeah, okay, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this so far. I mean, this is how a CG creature is created in any film or games that you've seen. Um, so we will use this skeleton later in many stages, like rigging and even muscle and tissue simulation, that side of things. So just to give you an overview of what to expect next, once the skeleton is completed, we'll obviously move on to the muscles, and we'll try and first sculpt the large visible muscles only, like the thing that you can see from the outside, and then where there are gaps, we try to go a layer down and then yeah, sculpt those muscles as well. So it's not going to be completely inside out musculature, but just the visible ones. And once we have done that, then we move on to the skin and so on. So I hope you enjoyed this so far, and that's the end of today's session. So I'm going to end this stream in 3, 2, 1.